Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the Real Estate Podcast. I'm Todd Sumney, the Chief Industry Officer for HomeSmart International. And on the Real Estate Podcast, we discuss smart strategies to help real estate agents accelerate their business. And today, we have a very special guest with us today, Raj Askar, spelled with a B, as we just went over, Bhaskar, but it's Raj Oscar from Hurdler.com. And Hurdler has an amazing tool that really can help agents track their expenses, taxes, help them with their accounting all year long. And it really ties into year-end business planning. So here it is. We're in November, early December, recording this podcast, getting ready to start a new year. And one of the things about accounting and tracking expenses is it's something you want to do all year long. You don't want to do just for 3 months or so. Is that right? So the timing is perfect. So Raj, thank you for being on the podcast here today.
Very happy to be here, Todd. Thanks for having me.
All right. Where are you located, by the way?
I'm based in Washington, D.C. Our entire team is out here, not too far away from the IRS.
All right.
Yeah, but we don't hang out on Capitol Hill or anything. It's a great town, but we have users all over the country.
Right. Well, we're going to talk about that in just a second about how much you actually track. But I want to set the stage here a little bit. The topic today on the Real Estate Podcast here is about running a profitable business. 5 key numbers and terms that you need to know. Now, to kind of set the stage a little bit here with, what you just said, you have users all over the country. I was amazed, about the volume of finances that you've tracked so far. So is that correct there? That's a 6 billion number with a B?
Yeah, I think now it's around 8 billion. But we like to go on the conservative side. So it was 6 billion and 250 million in taxes saved for our users. We're very focused on providing value and just helping people in general stay on top of their finances.
Right.
An independent contractor, it's much more complicated. It's already hard enough as a consumer, and it's even harder as an independent contractor running your own business.
Right. Well, let's dig into that. That's an amazing number, though, especially when that's really only the last 2.5 or 3 years here. So, really, really impressive. But let's dig into. I think you have some key terms that you really want everyone to know and to understand. Term number 1, I chuckled when I saw this because this is so true, and I run into it working with real estate agents all the time. Don't confuse profit with commissions. So you want to expound on that a little bit?
Absolutely. It's a very simple formula, but hard to nail. Profit equals commissions minus expenses. It's great to earn commission. It's awesome to get commissions, but you have to keep your expenses in mind. That's how you calculate what your actual profit is.
Right.
So, it's very we haven't come across too many agents who are able to generate commissions without any expenses.
Right.
And so it's that simple and it's that hard.
It is. I love the formula, profit equal commissions minus expenses. Then point number 2, it deserves repeating, right?
Absolutely. And so we could come up with 5 exact terms, but it's absolutely worth repeating. And you can, if profit equals commissions minus expenses doesn't hit home for many folks, then let's just move the formula around. But it's the same thing. Commissions minus expenses equals profit.
Right.
So whichever way you dice it up, you got to know those. You need to know your commissions. You need to know your expenses. That's the only way you can calculate profit. If you don't know your expenses, you just can't calculate profit.
Exactly. And for those that are watching the podcast, we recently recorded a podcast about business planning, and basically it was titled Profitability Through Business Planning. And one of the key elements of that was tracking your expenses. and also working to lower your expenses. And that's why I love what you have here, on the slide, is that, working to your expenses affect your profit, right? So the first thing you have to do is track them, and then you can work maybe even to lower them. But maybe if you want to speak to this point for a minute here, number 3, expenses, how they make or break your profit.
Absolutely. So Todd, so we have 3 components in the formula. It's profit equals commissions minus expenses. So therefore, if you don't know your expenses, it's impossible to calculate your profit, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that what's important to do is to set an expense budget, so you don't go spending wildly throughout the year, because that obviously is going to bring your profit down. We're coming up, towards the end of the year. It's a great time to do business planning, like you talked about, for the new year. Along with that planning, set a proper expense budget, track along the way, so you don't go over that budget. But that's something that you can then monitor to see, can you cut those expenses down, or do you need to increase them to meet your commission goals? But the last point is that if you track your expenses, there are certain expenses, most business expenses can be written off. The value of that is it lowers your taxable income. If we get less technical, it essentially ends up lowering your actual income taxes.
Right.
Which means you get to keep more money. You want to track your expenses, because that's the only way you can claim those valuable deductions.
Right. But that's how I love how you've actually boiled it down here to really the key points, because basically when I work with agents all around the country, all the time, I think that I often run into them understanding, oh yeah, I need to set a budget for marketing. Like I'm going to spend X amount a month on postcards or on printing or on drop buys or something like that, right? But they often tend to forget about the gasoline expense, the automobile insurance expense, the lunches that they may do when they're having lunch 5 days a week across from a potential prospect that they're trying to cultivate their sphere of influence. That's actually an expense. If you're having that lunch in order to grow your business, in my mind, that's a business expense that you should track, that you should then try to track it against your ROI, your return on your investment. So then you had these lunches, how much business came out of having those lunches, and be able to track back against it. So
yeah, that particular one, we call it lead gen meals.
Oh, great. So you have an app that we're going to get to in a minute that actually helps an agent easily track these on their phone, correct?
Absolutely. But, for folks who aren't tracking their expenses, I mean, we're replacing a lot of paper and spreadsheets, but I would implore you to just start tracking any which way.
Right.
That's the most important thing.
Right.
Whatever you can do to just start tracking your expenses, because we can write off many of those expenses.
Well, and speaking of write-offs, taxes, right? Point number 4, why do agents need to plan for taxes?
So agents, majority of agents, the greater majority, 90% plus, are independent contractors. So when you're an independent contractor, you're basically a small business owner, and you have to pay your own taxes because you're not on a traditional payroll. And so your taxes aren't withheld for you. So you have to pay federal income taxes, self-employment taxes, and in most states, state income tax.
Right.
So you need to set aside money from your income or your commissions to make those quarterly and annual tax payments.
Right.
So
well, and that's why you have a new formula up on the screen. So we've calculated profit by having commissions minus expenses is your profit, but profit minus taxes is your take-home pay for a real estate agent.
And the profit minus taxes is what you actually keep at the end of the day. So, in the earlier part of this, we're talking all about profit and how to calculate that profit. And profit is great. You need to have profit. Right. You don't pay taxes unless you have profit. So it's a pleasure to pay taxes because that means you're profitable.
Right.
But after you take out taxes, that's what you actually get to keep at the end of the day. That's the money you use to fund your life.
Right, right. So basically, tracking your expenses can help you leverage deductions to minimize taxes, and also even mileage tracking can save you money. And I know from experience that if you don't start at the beginning of the year or make it easy that you can track your mileage and just make it a habit, do it on a daily basis. So find something that helps you easily track your mileage, because then at the end of the year, you're like, oh, I wish I would have tracked more of my mileage. I wish I would have, right?
Yep.
And
It adds up real quick.
it
Real
does.
quick.
It
And
really,
if you're taking the buyer around all day, looking at properties, and it adds up.
exactly. Exactly. Okay. So point number 5, cost of service, or some people call it cost of sales, know what your profit margin is. What is it that you think agents need to know about this?
Yeah, so this gets a little more advanced for folks that have certain variable expenses tied to sales. So, for example, if you have a buyer assistant that you use um, to help you generate buyer leads, as well as to take your buyers around, and it's those folks on your, whether it's a team or otherwise, where you're giving them a cut of the commission. That's important to know, because that affects what your profitability is on those. And you want to know those costs of sales, because you can factor that into your budgeting model. And some folks, you kind of need to look at it as an expense, so you know that you're still running profitability.
Right. Right. So how can real estate agents consistently determine their profit margins?
Yep. So number one thing, first you have to track your expenses to know what your profit is, and then you start looking at your transactions, how many transactions you have, and start doing some simple math on those transactions against those expenses. That way you can see whether you're making 60%, 40%, 80%. You're not making 100%. That's the first thing I want to make clear. Almost no one makes 100% profit margin
Right.
on a deal.
I interviewed a top team recently, though, that they told me, and they knew to the single digit percentage, they made a 67% net profit last year, and they track everything. And but that puts them in such control of their business that it was refreshing to have that conversation with them. So that's why we're doing this podcast today. We want all of you real estate agents to have that same level of control in your business. And then, lastly, if you know these numbers, just like what I was alluding to, if you know these numbers, then you can grow your business and grow your business profitably. And I even have a saying in marketing, and in a lot of my training classes, I talk about a lot of, hey, if something's working, do more of that. And if something's not working, don't do that anymore. But you got to know the numbers to even know how to analyze that. So what do you think agents need to know about this?
Well, I think it's those 3 key numbers, right? And really it's 2. And I can even argue that it's just 1. You just need to know your expenses, because
Right.
your brokerage is already tracking the commissions. You should know that it's already there.
Right.
So it's really your expenses, because with those 2 numbers, then you can calculate your profit. Very simple. And just track this stuff. It doesn't matter what you use to track it. Just track it.
But I think it's key. What you've really made this pretty simple on these slides, and I think that agents can keep it simple. There is no need for a full blown accounting system, right? Just keep it simple, and that's where your app really comes into play. We've been talking about tracking these expenses, tracking the income. And you have an app that's available on the App Store, available on Google Play. It's also available at hurdler.com, HURDLR.com. And I think it's also interesting to know you have an entire university that does training, like a Hurdler University, that can have some short little videos that agents can watch that can really help them understand how easy it is to do.
Yeah.
Could you expound on that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So the things we talked about in our app, like we show you your profit after tax right there in the big letters on your phone. So you can walk around, have that at lunch with your potential client, and when you're done, capture that expense, but also know where you're at, like know your profit in real time. And it has a built-in real-time income tax calculation engine as well for all 50 states and DC and all provinces in Canada. So it'll tell you how much you owe in taxes in any second.
Right.
And so it's nice, connects all the dots, grabs all your mileage, tracks everything for you. And it's very cost effective too. It's just $60 a year, $5 a month. But the main thing is that I can't say this enough, that you just got to track things, whether you use an app or paper. An app makes it easier for your reporting. It'll lower the time you spend with an accountant at the end of the year when it comes time to file your taxes.
Right.
But paper is fine too.
Right. So will the app also, will it kind of integrate with my laptop, as well? I mean, my phone, I love the fact that it's on my phone because that's with me 24/7, or, all throughout the day. So I can really track things as I'm going along, makes it easy. But does it also then, connect to my laptop or have some additional capabilities, off when it's not on my phone?
Yeah, definitely. So it's all synced across your all your devices and your laptop as well.
Okay.
So you can get it. You can access your account anywhere on the web. Very straightforward. And there's additional functionality on the laptop. A lot of folks, if you're not staying up to date with things, we automate quite a bit. But if you want to do other reporting and other things on your laptop, has all that, and you can share things with your accountant through the laptop as well. Yeah.
Well, that makes it so easy. I just love the fact too that it's real time. I mean, that could be just so empowering, just to know.
It's addicting.
That's
I used to track Hurdler's expenses on Hurdler itself.
That's great.
And then the company's gotten big now, so we've grown out of it a bit because we're really targeting. This is really for solo operators, really for independent real estate agents. So yeah.
Love it. Well, hey, thank you for being, here with us today on the Real Estate Podcast. On the, the podcast audience is made up of real estate professionals that they could use all of the key points we just talked about, and even in your app there. Is there any parting thought or anything you really want them all to know? I mean, you have an audience here. What do you want them to know, or you have any little success stories or anything like that where somebody was like, oh, you saved me last year by helping me, or anything that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, and the success stories are there quite a bit. We get it, especially this time of year and in the next few months, how much folks really like that it automated things throughout the year. And when they went to file their taxes with their accountant, just push a button, share the report there. We're getting 5 stars and thumbs up from their accountants, thanking us for making their accountants' life easier.
Right.
And so, my thing in general is just we want to enable real estate agents to run a profitable business. To run a profitable business, you need to know your numbers. It's that simple. And I said in the first slide, it's that simple and it's that hard. But we're trying to simplify that for you. So don't be afraid to automate some of these things, and don't be afraid to look at your numbers. Sometimes the numbers aren't good. Maybe you're afraid because they're not great, but the only way you can improve them is to really know them and then set your targets. So it's all about profit. We want you to run a profitable business.
Right. Right. That's great advice. That is good insight. So, Raj, thank you so much for being on the Real Estate Podcast here with us today. We appreciate you, appreciate your company. Make sure you go to hurdler.com, HURDLR.com. And, I'm going to go back here, pull it up one more time. HURDLR.com, hurdler.com, or go to the App Store for Apple products, or get it on Google Play. But Raj, just thanks for your insight. Thanks for simplifying this and boiling it down. Thank you for being on the Real Estate Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Todd. Really appreciate it.
All right. And to the audience, thank you for joining us today. Be on the lookout for future topics, and we hope to see you back here again at the Real Estate Podcast. where we help real estate professionals with strategies to help them grow their business. Thank you all. I'll see you soon.